Unexpected discovery. Poor girl uncovers CEO's transformative goodbye letter hidden under seat. Ellie had just finished polishing the marble floors when she noticed the gleam of a pristine envelope peeking out from beneath the plush leather of the CEO's chair. Curiosity crept in, mingling with the exhaustion that clung to her limbs after another long night of cleaning in the corporate giant's serene fortress. As she picked it up, she hesitated. Was this a breach of trust? But the weight of her family's sacrifices pressed her forward. She opened it, heart racing, discovering a heartfelt goodbye letter from David, the former CEO. His words poured out like a secret confession, regrets about missed opportunities for authentic connections amidst the lofty heights of corporate success. Ellie felt an unexpected weight lift, resonating with her dreams of a life unshackled by a tight budget. In the quiet of that empty office, surrounded by artifacts of wealth she couldn't fathom, she found something stirring within her, a connection to a man who had never known her, yet understood her struggles in ways few did, but that connection was fraught with contradiction. Doubt crept back in like a cold shadow. Who was she, a janitor in the suburbs, to hope for anything beyond her station? The glimmer of ambition sparked and flickered as she wrestled with the fear that her dreams were just fantasies, meant for those with silver spoons and trust funds. What if she reached out and failed, exposing her desperate hopes to the stark realities of class? Each breath felt heavier, laden with the weight of expectations, her own and those of her family. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ellie's fingers danced over the keys as she crafted a message so raw, so honest that it pinned her emotions to the screen like butterflies under glass. When she hit send, her stomach churned. What if he dismissed her? What if he had no interest in a relationship that bridged the abyss between their worlds? Weeks passed, and her fears festered, a relentless torment. Then, to her astonishment, he replied, offering mentorship. Through the intense rush of excitement came fresh waves of anxiety. Could she really transform her life with his help? As their friendship shifted to late-night calls and shared dreams, Ellie felt hope bloom, yet doubts shadowed her heart. Her peers mocked her, calling her delusional for dreaming of mingling with the elite. She clenched her jaw at the sound of their condescension, a mocking reminder of the status she longed to escape. David faced whispers, too. What kind of CEO would befriend a janitor? He battled with his own insecurities, trying to sift through the corporate culture that taught him to overlook people like her, but the ever-growing tension between them paled in comparison to the earthquake of betrayal that struck her one fateful night. An article surfaced detailing David's past, a history steeped in discrimination against people from her socioeconomic class. Ellie reeled, struggling to reconcile the friendship she had come to cherish with the very real pain of his previous beliefs. Her mind raced, heart thudding with anguish. Had she naively placed her hopes in the hands of someone whose values had once diminished her very existence? As the clock ticked into the small hours, Ellie stood frozen, caught between the image of the man who had helped her and the ugly truths of who he had been. Would she confront him, risking everything, or remain shrouded in silence, fighting an internal battle alone? Doubt clawed at her, suffocating hope as the night loomed around them, filled with uncertainty that defined the next chapter of their intertwined lives. The morning sun filtered through the wide glass windows, casting elongated shadows across the office floor, but Ellie felt only a chill inside her. Staring blankly at the polished marble, she fought against the tumult of emotions raging within her. The warmth of their late-night conversations with David had been replaced by an icy knot of dread. She took a deep breath, attempting to reclaim her thoughts, but they slipped through her fingers like sand. Weeks of virtual mentorship had filled her with hope, yet the revelation of David's past sat like a stone in her gut. How could she have misjudged him? The letters exchanged between them overflowed with possibilities, ambitions, dreams, and insights that exposed her vulnerability. However, they now carried an undertone of betrayal. Her reality clashed violently with the newfound aspirations he had ignited. How could she embrace this friendship with someone who had once turned his back on people like her? Determined not to lapse into despair, Ellie decided to confront him. The choice was hers, to ignore the elephant in the room, the history that now seemed insurmountable, or to address it head-on, risking rejection and losing the only guiding light she had in her life. She sat down at her desk, fingers hovering over her laptop. The words seemed to escape her, stifled by fear and a yearning for connection yet again. As she watched the cursor blink in accusatory rhythm, she realized that silence would only result in resentment. It would consume her from the inside. With newfound resolve, she began typing. Her heart raced with each keystroke as she poured forth her thoughts, how his past haunted her decisions, how it skewed the trust they had built, how it made her reevaluate their relationship entirely. After she hit send, Ellie felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. Would this rupture the fragile bond they had forged? The uncertainty gnawed at her, an ever-present anxiety seeping into her bones. Yet, beneath the trepidation lay a growing conviction that she could not be defined by her past or by David's. Her identity was her own, a janitor, yes, but also a dreamer, unafraid to leap into the unknown. The hours crawled by endlessly. She threw herself into her cleaning routine, almost obsessively scrubbing surfaces, as if physical labor could scrub away her fears. If she could just see the world with clarity. Just an acknowledgement from David would ease the weight on her chest. When her phone finally chimed, she nearly dropped the mop. His response was swift, yet the words felt heavy. He acknowledged his past, an honest recounting of his former self, mired in bias and arrogance. But it was his next sentence that grabbed her attention. He expressed a willingness to change, a desire to prove he could learn and grow. The sincerity cut through her doubts like a hot knife through butter. But sobering questions remained. Did she have the strength to forge ahead with someone who had once failed so profoundly in his understanding of class? Could their relationship withstand the scrutiny of her peers, the judgments lingering from his past? Ellie felt a spark of determination flicker. Before she could stiffen against the sudden surge of resolve, David proposed a meeting. The weight of their intertwined fates now rested upon a single moment, a conversation that could transform their dynamic forever. As doubts and questions swirled in her mind, Ellie felt trepidation mount. Would this meeting offer clarity, or lead her deeper into uncertainty? The stakes had never been higher, and in that moment, she clenched her jaw, embracing the terror and excitement of what lay ahead, as she planned for the most pivotal conversation of her life. Would she stand tall, a voice for those who had been silenced before? The time had come to face not just him, but herself. The cool evening air enveloped Ellie as she stepped outside the office building, her heart racing. The world seemed sharper, the sounds more pronounced, as anticipation coursed through her veins. She had spent the day rehearsing her words, assembling her thoughts into a coherent narrative she hoped would both confront and guide David through this minefield of their past. With a nervous energy, she glanced at the clock on her phone. In less than an hour, they would meet in the cafe down the street, a place steeped in the warmth of shared moments, yet now filled with the shadows of doubt. Would he truly understand? Would he grasp the weight of his previous choices as clearly as she did? As Ellie walked, she reflected on how far she had come. Just months ago, she was a young woman lost in the monotony of her cleaning job, unsure of her worth, hesitant to dream beyond the daily grind. But through her interactions with David, their letters, even their misunderstandings, she had started to build a more resilient self-image. She was not merely an employee, she had ambitions, thoughts, a voice that deserved to be heard. Arriving at the cafe, the familiar smell of coffee and pastries greeted her, the atmosphere buzzed with laughter and conversation. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open, the chime signaling her arrival. Her eyes quickly found David sitting in a corner booth, his expression contemplative as he stared out the window. In that moment, Ellie's resolve wavered. The weight of her past choices, influenced by his biases, bore down on her shoulders. She settled into the seat opposite him, and as their eyes met, she felt the faintest tremor of doubt creep in. "Thanks for coming," David began, his voice a mixture of warmth and uncertainty. "I had to," she replied, forcing a smile. "There are things we need to discuss." With measured breaths, Ellie laid out her thoughts, articulating her fears, her hopes, and the stark reality of the gap that lay between them. She shared how she felt betrayed, how his past shadows lingered, yet there was still a flicker of possibility, a chance to forge something profound if he truly was willing to grow. As she spoke, David listened intently, his eyes never leaving hers. He recounted his journey since their mentorship began, the discomfort of examining his own biases, and the painful realizations that had propelled him toward a path of change. Ellie could see the sincerity etched on his face, but could she trust it? "Ellie, I can't erase who I was," he admitted, vulnerability painting his voice. "But I want to be different. I want to challenge myself to understand the world better. Not for me, but for people like you." At that moment, Ellie felt a spark of hope. Could this be the turning point of not only their relationship but also her own trajectory? She realized that her potential had been inhibited by fear, and perhaps just perhaps David's willingness to confront his past could empower her to embrace her own future. However, beneath her burgeoning faith lurked a question: was she ready to fully accept a partnership with someone who had faltered in profound ways? Before she could further dissect her emotions, the cafe door swung open, drawing in a blast of cold air. A group of colleagues from her workplace entered, their chatter drowning out the ambience. Their casual laughter, their dismissive glances toward her combined with a fleeting recognition of David, spiraled uncertainty within her. As they settled nearby, Ellie's heart raced at the implications looming overhead. All eyes seemed to rest upon her, amplifying the scrutiny she feared. Could she stand firm in her vulnerability, or would she succumb to the pressures of judgment and expectation? In that instant, Ellie felt the weight of a pivotal choice. The conversation could either dissipate into silence or explode into something transformative. As David leaned forward, prompting her to continue, she felt her voice surge with newfound resolve. This was not just about them, it was about claiming her identity and acknowledging her evolving self. Yet, lurking beneath this growth was the dangerous question of whether she was prepared to dismantle the facade she had built, the one that kept her safe from heartache and rejection. She would need to dig deep for the strength to confront not just David but also the judgments tethered to her past. With courage swelling in her chest, she faced David, ready to uncover the layers of their shared experience, knowing full well that the path ahead was fraught with trials and revelations. And just as the conversation began to peel back old layers, the lingering presence of her colleagues began to echo louder in her mind, drawing her attention to the repercussions of her decisions. Would she expose her vulnerabilities to them? The real test was about to unfold, and the ramifications could reshape her future in ways she had yet to comprehend. Ellie's pulse quickened as her colleagues filled the cafe with their boisterous chatter, transforming her intimate space with David into a stage for scrutiny. The laughter around her felt like needles pricking at her carefully constructed facade, threatening to unravel everything she had just begun to rebuild. She turned back to David, whose brow furrowed with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, aware of the tension radiating from her. Ellie opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, she felt a tight knot forming in her throat. The weight of judgment loomed over her like a molecular fog, thickening around her thoughts and suffocating her resolve. "Ellie?" David's voice urged her back to the moment at hand, an anchor against the rising tide of doubt. She could sense the sincerity in his gaze. This was a man who had begun to accept his own past and sought to grow from it. Yet, confrontations with her own vulnerabilities, and their implications, felt much more daunting. The laughter from her colleagues ricocheted off her skin, pulling her focus. She could see them now: Gary, the ever-ambitious office manager, throwing a mocking glance her way; Jenna, the administrative assistant who often dismissed Ellie's potential, whispering something that made her friends giggle. She hated how small their sneers made her feel. It struck at the core of her hard-won self-respect. An impulse surged within her. What if she acknowledged this moment? What if she turned their judgment, once a blade against her, into a shield of her own identity. She looked at David, a life raft in a turbulent sea, and in that moment, she chose to cast off the expectations of others. "I need to say this," Ellie began, her voice louder than she expected, almost surprising herself. "This meeting isn't just for us to talk about the past. It's also about my present. I need you to understand what I've been through, and what I'm ready to fight against." David nodded, his expression encouraging her to continue. "Every step I've taken from my job, my choices has led me to this moment. I'm not just a cleaner, I have skills, aspirations, and most importantly, I deserve respect." Her heart pounded, but the conviction in her words fortified her resolve. A flicker of confusion crossed David's face, but she pressed on, ignoring the gnawing presence of her colleagues. "You think we can create something without addressing the hurt? Without acknowledging what has held me back?" "Ellie, David started, but she cut him off, edges already frayed from vulnerability. "The truth is, I fear that if I allow myself to believe in our future, I'm also leaving the door open for rejection. I don't want to live in the shadows of your decisions anymore." The confidence that had emerged felt thrilling, but she could taste a bitterness intertwined with it. Was she inches away from alienating him? In a room full of distractions and expectation, she needed to stay true to herself. To her surprise, David leaned forward, intent and focused. "I see you. And Ellie, know that I want what's best for you, for us. You won't lose me because of who you used to be, or who I was before." He could finish. The cafe door swung open again, signaling another distraction. A sudden gust of wind accompanied a figure entering. Their boss, Mark, walked in, his authoritative presence slicing through the room. Ellie's heart dropped. Mark zeroed in on their table, and Ellie felt the tension in her shoulders tighten. Would he disrupt this fragile moment? Would he deem her discussion irrelevant? As he approached, she rehearsed the possibility of confrontation in her mind. Would they challenge her growth? Or, could this be an opportunity for greater recognition, not just by David, but by everyone around her? Every step he took toward them felt like the stakes were rising, pulsing with anticipation and uncertainty. "Ellie," he called, a mix of curiosity and authority coloring his tone. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" The words cut through the intimate sphere she had carved out with David, invading what felt sacred. As Ellie stood, the conversation between her past and future hung precariously in the air, a balance between empowerment and the judgment she had tried so hard to resist. "This isn't over," she promised silently to herself, even as uncertainty loomed large before her. As she stepped away from the table, toward her boss's invitation, Ellie felt a flicker of resolve. Each moment offered an opportunity to redefine her path, one choice at a time. The question lingered: could confronting the past deepen her understanding, or would it threaten the very connections she sought to enhance? And in that fraught moment, it became all too clear that her evolution was entwined with both the shadows of others and the light she dared to aspire to. Ellie approached Mark with a blend of determination and trepidation. The hum of the cafe faded behind her, replaced by the pounding rhythm of her heartbeat. She could feel David's eyes on her as she crossed the distance between them, a silent testament to the challenges she faced not only within herself but in confronting authority. As she reached the table, Mark gestured for her to sit. His posture, both casual and commanding, felt like an intricate dance of expectation. "I wanted to discuss your recent performance and some ideas for your development," he said, his tone businesslike but with an underlying compassion. Ellie took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation that could dictate her future. She had often felt invisible within the employee ranks, her contributions undervalued and overlooked. Now, she had a chance to show Mark the evolution within her, catalyzed by recent breakthroughs. "I appreciate that," she replied, her voice steady despite the racing thoughts in her mind. "I feel like I've been at a crossroads lately, re-evaluating what I want to achieve in this role." Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Go on." "I want to take on more responsibility," she declared, the resolve growing stronger. I want to be involved in projects that push the envelope. I believe I can offer insights that could bring real value. Value, huh? He mused, tapping his fingers against the table in thought. You know, that's exactly what we need in our team right now. Fresh perspectives. His words hung in the air, a possible endorsement or mere platitude. Over the years, she had witnessed countless innovative ideas dismissed, drowned in a sea of bureaucracy. But she refused to crumble under that weight. What would you envision in terms of projects? She asked, testing the waters, trying to gauge how far she could push this budding professional development. Actually, we're looking at revamping our operational processes, Mark said, sliding a file across the table. Your familiarity with the ground realities could be beneficial here. Ellie opened the file and scanned the contents. Ideas were swirling within her, knowledge she had gathered over long months of experience began to crystallize before her eyes. She recognized a pattern and opportunity to align her skills with the company's projected growth. I see a few areas where we could streamline, she began, her voice rising with confidence. As they discussed, time faded. Ellie felt a shift within her, one that had been so elusive until now. With every point she made, she watched Mark's interest deepen, the initial scrutiny giving way to a more respectful acknowledgement of her potential. This was not a conversation about merely doing her job, this was about ownership and impact. In the back of her mind, each suggestion she made felt like an unveiling, a step away from insecurity and into conviction. Each past rejection transformed into motivation, fueling her aspirations. Mark was beginning to listen. Ellie, this is promising, he finally said, leaning back with a contemplative expression. I want you to draft a proposal outlining your thoughts. We can pitch it to the board together. Her heart swelled with a rush of affirmation. Thank you, she said, her voice catching slightly. This was an opportunity she had yearned for, a chance to reclaim her narrative in a space that had often felt hostile. Yet, in the back of her mind was the lingering uncertainty: could this momentum sustain itself once she ventured back to David and her colleagues? Would they respect the version of her she was striving to own? Ellie stood, feeling invigorated yet vulnerable as she navigated past the layers of her reality. As she returned to David, anticipation mixed with apprehension in her chest. She wanted to share the experience, to invite him into this new chapter. But part of her hesitated: would he fully appreciate the weight of her transformation? As she moved closer, she noticed her colleagues glancing their way, the whispers fluttering like dragonflies. Would this signal change, or simply stir more judgments? I need to discuss something important with you, she said to David, trying to conceal the whirlwind of emotions inside. They had a connection, a delicate thread that wove through shared experiences, but each thread could either strengthen or fray under scrutiny. Little did she realize, the confrontation she had danced around earlier loomed on the horizon. Her internal clash between fear and freedom was just beginning, and the path to defining herself would be riddled with both encouragement and misunderstanding. The moment of truth approached, and Ellie felt the undeniable pulse of anxiety coupled with determination. What awaited her in the hours ahead could shift everything she thought she understood about growth, both personal and professional. As she braced for the impending conversation, she reminded herself, this journey wouldn't simply redefine how others viewed her, it could reshape how she viewed herself. As Ellie tuned into David's expression, she felt the weight of expectation settle heavily in the air between them. She had navigated countless conversations with him before, yet each one now felt like an expedition into uncharted territory. Ellie? David prompted, his tone laced with curiosity as he picked up on her hesitation. I spoke with Mark, she said, her voice tracing a fine line between eagerness and caution. She watched David's brow furrow slightly, a cue that his interest piqued, but she couldn't tell if it was an invitation to proceed or a signal to withdraw. What about? He pressed, drawing closer, as if trying to break through the fog that had formed around her. She contemplated the correct words to encapsulate her progress without sounding overly self-promotional. He wants me to draft a proposal for a project that could impact our operational processes, she stated, the thrill of the conversation at its core bubbling just below her surface. David paused, his gaze evaluating her, scanning for the authenticity behind her declaration. That's great, Ellie. You've got innovative ideas. I've always thought so. His response, seemingly supportive, ignited a flicker of internal conflict. Part of her wanted to share the details of her newfound responsibility, to showcase this new chapter and the self-assured woman she aspired to be. Yet, lingering doubts tightened around her like an unyielding vice. Would he genuinely celebrate her success, or was he merely echoing his past encouragements out of habit? Yes, Mark mentioned that he values fresh perspectives, Ellie continued, her core aligning with the newfound sense of agency that was rising manically within her. I feel like I can finally contribute something meaningful. Ellie. David's voice softened, dipping into concern. This sudden shift, are you sure you're ready for it? Things can get complicated quickly. It's easy to get lost in the bigger picture. The tug of uncertainty reared its head once more. Was he questioning her ambition, or was he genuinely concerned? A creeping insecurity surged, beginning to unravel the thread of confidence she had stitched together with Mark. I know it's a risk, she replied, catching the strain of tension in her own voice. But if I don't take it now, when will I? Right, he said slowly, nodding yet holding back something unspoken. Just remember to factor in the politics of this place. It can be overwhelming at times. There it was, the stark reminder of her past, the memories of her voice being swallowed in conference rooms, the sting of dismissal still fresh in her mind. The echoes of doubt crept closer, and the monster of self-doubt loomed larger than before, whispering that she was stepping into a realm beyond her reach. I can handle it, she asserted, pushing back against the tides of negativity threatening to pull her under. I've been overlooked for too long. This is my chance to reshape my role here. David searched her face, seeking the truth behind her words, yet Ellie felt the truth slipping just out of his grasp. Her evolving narrative was one of defiance against the narratives others had constructed around her. Just be careful, he finally said, his expression still weighed with concern. I don't want to see you hurt. Ellie's heart twisted at his protectiveness, even as her spirit raged against the implied limitations. I appreciate that, but I need to do this for myself. Their conversation hung in the air heavily. She realized she had nurtured an unexpected gulf between them. Would David continue to root for her from the sidelines, or would he take this as an opportunity to hold her back? As she collected her thoughts and prepared to return to drafting the proposal, Ellie knew there were choices ahead that would define the boundaries of her ambitions. She had the tools and the sparked confidence to break out, but the challenge was not only from the projects she would chase but also in wrestling with the relationships she held dear. What if pursuing her new path would define her as distant to those she valued most? Breaching the gap could unearth critical truths that she was not yet prepared to face. While she began to devise the proposal in her mind, a new unease settled in her gut. What if the pursuit of her identity led not only to empowerment but also to isolation? With her resolve firmly in place, she picked up a pen and sat down to write, the paper before her a blank canvas waiting for transformation. But as she began, the gnawing question lingered: could she truly harness this opportunity without losing part of herself in the process? The duality of ambition weighed on her, and Ellie sensed that the most significant battle lay ahead, not only against the perceptions of others but in reconciling every part of her evolving self. Would the strength she unearthed be enough to withstand the fractures that might follow? As she reached for the paper, uncertainty whispered that the moment of reckoning was at hand. Ellie's fingers hovered above the blank page, the crisp whiteness daring her to make the first mark. The pen felt foreign in her hand, both a tool for expression and a potential weapon she feared to wield. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, inhaling deeply, allowing the weight of uncertainty to settle around her before pulling it back like a bowstring. Her heart raced with the possibilities that stretched before her, but more than that, she felt the pull of dread. What if she failed? She began to jot down ideas, her mind racing with the strategies Mark had outlined. The project needed a mission statement, objectives, and measurable outcomes. She caught herself gravitating toward the conventional structure she had always relied on, yet somewhere inside, she felt a flicker of rebellion urging her to think differently. Those limitations were what had stifled her voice for too long. She forced herself to deviate from her safe strategies, instead weaving in innovative approaches that had sparked inspiration during her discussions with Mark. Each word she penned felt like an exploration of her own potential. As the proposal began to take shape, so too did her confidence. She felt the pulse of her heart synchronize with the rhythm of her writing, beating with a determined cadence that she hadn't felt in years. This was where she belonged, included, heard, and making an impact. Time slipped by unnoticed, and as she drafted the final lines, a quiet self-acknowledgement began to bloom within her. It was thrilling and terrifying, an affirmation that her ideas mattered. Just as she was about to review her work, a loud knock at the door jolted her from her concentration. It was David again, and instantly, she felt her confidence sway. "Ellie, do you have a moment?" he asked, his tone more urgent this time. "Sure," she replied, although her mind raced with the thought of either revealing her progress or cloaking it behind apprehension. David stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His expression was more serious than before, the casualness of their earlier discussion replaced by something more significant. "I wanted to talk about your proposal," he stated, leaning against the desk, his arms crossed. "I've just started drafting it," she replied, anxiously glancing at the papers spread before her. "But I think I'm onto something." "I believe you are," he said, nodding. "But I want you to consider the potential backlash this could cause. Have you thought about how your peers might react?" Her heart sank. "What do you mean?" "Change can shake things up, especially when there are established dynamics." He shifted uncomfortably, his brows knitted in thought. "Some won't welcome your input, and I worry they'll undermine your efforts if they feel threatened." Ellie contemplated David's perspective. The notion that she might encounter resistance unnerved her, rattling her newly minted self-belief. "I can't let that stop me," she found herself saying, though the conviction sounded hollow even to her ears. "Of course, but it's prudent to be prepared," he insisted. "Find allies. It's not just about having great ideas, it's about getting support for them. Your success will rely on how you manage relationships." The underlying verdict struck her like a jolt. David was trying to protect her, but his concerns painted a stark caution against her aspirations. "Are you saying I should hold back?" she challenged, irritation seeping into her voice. "No, not at all," he responded, his demeanor softening. "I believe in your abilities, but you need to be strategic. You can't rush into this without understanding the lay of the land." Frustration bubbled within her, threatening to spill over. Did he believe she was weak? That she couldn't handle the complexities of pushing her ambitions forward? A surge of rebellion rose as she confronted the possibility that her transformation could come at a cost: alliances, friendships splintering in the pursuit of progress. "Fine," she snapped, and instantly regretted it. She took a breath to regain her composure. "I'll do it my way." As David opened his mouth to respond, she realized that she had stepped over a line, one that she could neither retreat from nor ignore. Would he still stand by her, or retreat into skepticism? Their eyes locked in an unspoken conflict. Ellie suddenly felt the enormity of her choice crashing down around her. It was a pivotal moment, where the faint momentum of her discovery now wrestled with the fear of isolation. If pursuing my ambitions alienates me, then maybe I need to reconsider who truly supports them, she thought, the seed of realization taking root. The next question loomed large: what sacrifices was she willing to make to pursue her growth? In that tense silence, she could feel the unsettling truth breathe audibly between them. It was clear she was stepping into uncharted territory, one where the stakes were higher than she had anticipated. And as she fought against her uncertainty, the question remained: if the bridge she built to empower herself burned those she held dear, would the risk be worth taking? With unresolved tension in the air, she glanced back to her proposal, the first true manifestation of her courage, ready to alter the course of her professional journey. Yet, looming ahead was the unanswered riddle about her personal connections. Could she thrive while walking the tightrope of ambition and loyalty? Ellie stared at her proposal, the words blurring as the conversation with David replayed in her mind. His warnings echoed ominously, drowning out her thoughts. She shook her head, struggling to brush off the self-doubt creeping in. "Do it your way," she repeated silently, resolving to forge ahead. The emotional turmoil nudged an inner resolve. She knew she had to find a path that encompassed both ambition and integrity. Isolation felt like a looming shadow, urging her to retreat into the safety of conformity, but deep within, the beating pulse of her courage whispered, "Create your own space." There was a magnetic pull that drew her back to her writing. This was her chance to carve out a distinctive voice. Her pen hovered, her heart quickening with renewed purpose, with renewed determination. She began revising her proposal, diving deeper into the unconventional strategies she had shied away from. Detailed plans sprouted like wildflowers between deliberate thoughts, each one a testament to her evolving confidence. Ideas about collaboration and community investment emerged, prompting her to reconnect elements she had previously overlooked. But as critical as the proposal was, so was the challenge of building a supportive network. David's warning echoed in her mind. Allies were crucial. If she was to stand her ground, she needed to fit her voice into a chorus of support, rather than standing in isolation as a singular note. Just as she was integrating this thought, a flicker of inspiration struck her. Who better to support her than Mark himself? Feeling a blend of trepidation and excitement, she decided to reach out. It was drastic, requiring directness that pushed her comfort zone, but she recognized the necessity. Ellie quickly typed out a message, asking if they could meet to discuss her proposal further. There was no room for half measures now. She needed his established understanding of the dynamics at play to help buttress her resolve. As the minutes passed, the intensity of her anticipation grew. Would Mark see the potential she felt? Would he champion her vision? The stakes felt monumental. She was dangling between advocacy and vulnerability, questioning which role she could inhabit. When her phone finally buzzed with a reply, she felt her heart leap. He was available to meet the next day. A thrill of adrenaline coursed through her veins, infusing her with a fresh wave of motivation. In the midst of this exhilarating self-discovery, she realized she could meld her professional growth with nurturing relationships, not sacrifice one for the other, but harmonize them. As she wrestled with her conflicting emotions, a sudden surge of inspiration ignited an inner clarity. This was not just a proposal anymore, it was a personal revolution, a manifestation of her growth. But could she truly engage with those around her in a way that honored her ambitions while fostering collaboration? The questions churned in her mind as she took a moment to step back from her desk, pacing across the room, a natural response to the mounting tension inside her. Later that evening, while reflecting on her entire arc leading up to this moment, she recalled her journey of hesitation and uncertainty. Each small victory in this uphill battle fortified her resolve, and she began to see herself as more than just an employee. She was a catalyst for change, but the excitement was tinged with a sobering realization. Her clarity soon paled in comparison to the uncertainty surrounding her relationships. The road she had chosen was fraught with potential pitfalls, and she could not ignore the shadows lingering near. Tomorrow, when she faced Mark, she would not only be marketing her proposal but confronting the very essence of her ambition. How she advocated for her ideas could determine the path of both her professional and personal spheres. With the dawn of a new day approaching, Ellie braced herself for the encounter that lay ahead, the meeting that would either reinforce her foundation or reshuffle her ambitions in unexpected ways. Would she secure the support to champion her proposal or find herself grappling with deeper tensions? Standing on the precipice of her own potential, her heart thumped with anticipation for what was yet to come. Ellie arrived at the coffee shop early the next morning, her shoulders tight and her mind racing. The rich aroma of roasted beans filled the air, but it was hard for her to savor the moment. Each sip of her latte turned into a reminder of the stakes she was about to face. She was aware of her heartache and her desire for validation entwined together, yet the courage to voice her ambitions was what propelled her forward. As she waited, she surveyed the room, noting people deeply engrossed in conversations, their laughter making it seem like the world around her was unfazed by her inner turmoil. She gripped her proposal tightly, its pages a testament to her mixed emotions of hope and anxiety. Today, she would reveal her vision, but would she find collaboration or confrontation? Moments turned into eternities until she spotted Mark walking through the door. He was warm and confident, his presence shifting the atmosphere around them. When their eyes met, she struggled to mask her trepidation with a smile, reminding herself to lean into the authenticity she aimed to project. "Hey, Ellie. Great to see you," Mark said, taking a seat across from her. That warmth offered a small comfort, allowing her to exhale. "Thanks for meeting me, Mark. I really appreciate it," she began, her voice faltering just slightly. She sensed her pulse quickening as she launched into the presentation. She highlighted not only her ideas but also her motivations, how passion fueled her desire for meaningful impact. But as she spoke, she could see Mark's brow furrow slightly. It was a telling sign. Emerging doubts curled in her gut. Does it resonate? She wondered, a faint tremor of uncertainty sparking in her heart. Did he understand the weight behind her proposal, the blend of creativity and pragmatism that shaped her vision? "Ellie, I admire your passion," he interjected, earning her a brief flicker of hope. "But let us talk about the feasibility of some of these strategies. Can they be executed effectively?" His focus on practicality deepened Ellie's anxiety, and she felt a flood of conflict rising inside. How could she maintain her authenticity without folding under his seasoned realism? She realized that defending her vision would be a true test of her resolve. "Absolutely, I anticipated some of these concerns," she replied, willing herself to keep her composure. "I've thought about smaller pilot projects that could demonstrate our concepts while keeping the risks minimal. It's about gradual engagement." As she outlined her adjusted strategies, each solution felt like a moment where she reclaimed her agency, recalibrating her path rather than conceding to doubt. But as Mark probed further, questioning various assumptions and suggesting alternative approaches, Ellie felt the pressure amplify. He expected her to adapt, but an insistent voice in her mind urged her not to compromise her essence. Each challenge he posed was a reminder that vulnerability could coexist with strength. This was her opportunity to redefine their interaction. Around her, the cafe ambience faded as she honed in on Mark's inquiries. She focused, synthesizing her thoughts into her responses while remaining aware of her emotional core. She could still build bridges even if she was advocating fiercely for her ideas. "I understand your concerns, and I want this to reflect collaboration," she asserted, feeling empowered as she spoke. "However, the essence of what I'm proposing is to engage people differently, not just as stakeholders, but as partners. Their input will shape the initiatives organically." The silence that followed felt heavy yet pregnant with possibility. Mark leaned back, his expression contemplative. Ellie's heart raced as she silently braved what he might say next. Would he see her zeal as a force or an impediment? "You're tackling a pivotal point," he finally responded, a hint of approval in his tone. "But it's always easier said than done. We must ensure it doesn't come off as idealistic." A flicker of relief washed over Ellie, but she quickly suppressed it. Mark's shift in demeanor could mean either alignment or further dissent. Would he find a way to support her vision, or would she need to advocate harder for her voice? Her instincts nudged her to articulate one last conviction: "Mark, I'm bringing my whole self to this. I won't shy away from the criticism. I need to make sure my approach is respected. If we want genuine change, we must embrace the unpredictable elements." The lines of concern around Mark's eyes softened. Would this realization pave the way toward mutual understanding, or would they find themselves at an impasse? The gravity of the conversation surged as Ellie sensed a turning point looming ahead. Soon enough, she would discover if her refusal to allow conformity to silence her would lead to the collaboration she yearned for, or will it thrust her deeper into conflict with expectations that felt increasingly burdensome. as they both sat in silence, Ellie could feel the day teetering on the brink of something transformative. Would this pivotal discussion solidify her ambitions or fracture her fragile confidence in the face of adversity? As the sunlight streamed through the cafe windows, illuminating the fading remnants of doubt in Ellie's heart, she felt a burgeoning strength swell within her. She wasn't just a janitor trying to break free from her past, she was a warrior ready to redefine her future. The stakes had transformed from uncertainty to a powerful realization. She could shape her narrative if she confronted her fears with boldness and conviction. "Mark," she began, her voice steadying, "I understand the realities of change. I'm not looking for an idealistic approach, I'm asking for a voice in creating the change I wish to see." The clarity in her words resonated with both herself and Mark. This was the turning point, the threshold she had to cross to reclaim ownership of her life. Each dialogue had turned her nervous energy into laser-focused determination. Mark regarded her with a newfound appreciation, seeing beyond the surface of their professional interactions. "You've come a long way, Ellie. I admire your willingness to stand your ground," he responded, his tone shifting toward a collaborative spirit. "What if we designate a soft launch for your proposal? Small-scale implementations will allow us to gauge reactions while minimizing risks." Ellie felt a thrill rush through her. This was validation. Not only had she effectively communicated her vision, but she also had begun crafting a partnership grounded in respect and mutual growth. "I'd love to integrate collaborative feedback from the team," she replied enthusiastically, envisioning her colleagues contributing rather than resisting. It was tangible, the cracks in her confidence were finally cemented with self-affirmation, and then reality hit her. It was one thing to embrace her growth within this conversation and another to navigate it among her peers, especially those who had doubted her. But as she glanced back at Mark, a teammate, someone in a position of influence, she felt invigorated. "Could you help champion this?" she asked, her vulnerability wielding its power. "If I know I have your backing, I can face whatever pushback may arise." "Absolutely," Mark affirmed, his smile genuine, reflecting a shared belief in her potential. "We can position it within our strategic framework. I will stand by you when you present this to the team. You have what it takes, Ellie." Those words were like sparks igniting a fire in her heart. Leaving the cafe, Ellie felt lighter. She had confronted her fears and emerged victorious, not by ignoring the challenges but by accepting and embracing them. Her thoughts turned to the meeting with David. How could she reconcile the growth in her professional life with the complexities of her developing relationship? Would David understand her decision to pivot beyond the shadows of their shared pasts? Upon reaching her apartment, Ellie felt the familiar weight of expectation settle back on her shoulders. She picked up her phone, hesitating before messaging David. In that moment, she resolved to share her triumph, the excitement of her proposal and the collaborative support from Mark, juxtaposed with what she still needed to confront. "Hey David, I wanted to let you know I met with Mark this morning. He's on board with my proposal." The exhilaration bubbled from her, but as soon as the message left her fingertips, doubt crept back in. She braced herself for what this conversation would entail. Would David's support transform, or would he find this new partnership intimidating? Not long after, David responded swiftly. "I'm proud of you, Ellie. A pitch that reflects your voice, that's amazing. But we still need to address what we've avoided." With every word she typed back, Ellie felt the force of transformation shifting, previously murky waters now becoming clear. "I agree. We need clarity. I want to face our truths together, as we move forward." The courage she had garnered away from him continued to grow, igniting hope that they could build something purposeful together. The following day, as she prepared for their conversation, Ellie reflected on her journey, how far she had come, and the solid ground she now stood upon. David arrived with an earnest expression, prompting her to share details about her proposal. As they exchanged thoughts, Ellie could see his face light up with understanding. The apprehensions he once harbored began to fade as he recognized her strength. "Ellie, your vision complements who I strive to be. You inspire me to want more for myself," too, David confessed, fortifying their relationship with sincerity. By the end of their candid conversation, they had dismantled the barriers and resurrected a dynamic built on respect and acknowledgement of past mistakes. While they honored their histories, their collective future unfolded as a testament to growth and potential. As days turned into weeks, Ellie reveled in her newfound roles, bridging her ambition and the potential for change, establishing her voice in the workplace, and reclaiming her identity. Recognition flowed in as she took charge of initiatives, wielding influence where once she felt bound. With each day, she understood that true achievement wasn't just about professional metrics, but also about her resilience in personal transformation. Each award she earned, each project she led became symbols of her journey, a testament to the power of confronting doubt and shaping one's destiny. In the reflection of her achievements, Ellie saw her worth wasn't tied to the opinions of others but etched into her own beliefs. She not only transformed her career trajectory but also solidified her identity, removing the shackles of her past, while creating room for authentic connections. Finally, Ellie stood at the precipice of her future, ready, equipped, and filled with an unwavering confidence. No longer unseen, she embraced her evolving narrative, ready to weave her story into the tapestry of those around her. Her journey highlighted not just self-fulfillment, but a broader understanding of collaboration and growth. And with clarity firm in hand, Ellie was prepared to step boldly into the world ahead, knowing that everything she had achieved was the result of her determination, not just for herself, but for the values and community she would champion. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it really makes a difference. I want to hear your thoughts, so comment your reactions and theories about this inspiring ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This moment is crucial for all true fans of personal overcoming stories.